Now, let's turn to that story that's been developing actually since we've been on air. The US military and State Department are recommending sending at least 3,000 more US troops to Afghanistan to fight the Taliban, according to reports in the US media. President Trump is said to be considering the plan. Meanwhile, the BBC understands that NATO has asked Britain to consider sending more troops. Well, across the other side of the studio is Afghanistan's ambassador to the UK, Jawad, waiting to speak to me. And as I say, this is potentially a significant change of policy. Of course, under President Obama, we saw NATO troops very quickly and rapidly withdrawn from Afghanistan. Ambassador, thank you so much for being here on the programme. Your basic reaction, because Afghanistan has been calling for this for some while.
We are very grateful for the troops that have been sent to Afghanistan previously by the UK. They have done a great job. They've stabilized Afghanistan. And if UK decide to send additional troops, it's very much welcomed by the Afghan people and the Afghan government.
If this move was not made, both by the Americans, the British, other NATO forces, what would the consequences be?
The majority of the fighting is done by the Afghan troops right now. We do need that additional capabilities to further assist and support the Afghan troops. Our troops are fighting heroically, but they are under a lot of pressure right now.
Did the Americans pull out? Did Britain pull out just too quickly, the militarily side of things?
The fact is that the Afghan troops were able to continue the fight effectively. We had 150,000 international troops in Afghanistan. When they withdraw, the Afghanistan or Kabul did not collapse. And yet there is additional pressure on our troops, and we need additional assistance.
There's a huge understatement. I mean, you say that the Afghan forces have been able to cope. That just simply isn't the case. We see Afghan forces under huge amounts of pressure. We see almost daily attacks in Kabul. The Afghan security forces simply cannot guarantee security in your country. That is the fact.
In many countries, the security forces cannot guarantee the safety of the people in an absolute way. In Afghanistan, in a country that's been in war for a long time.
But you have attacks in the provinces, you have attacks in the capital, you have the securest of locations coming under attack, both from the Taliban and from the IS. That is the reality, that Afghan forces really cannot cope on their own after all of this time.
Yes, they do need additional troops, but they're not collapsing. They're fighting also very heroically. We are losing a lot of the Afghan security forces, but yet there's no major cities in Afghanistan that fall into the hand of the Taliban. That's why the presence of the additional troops is not only to provide safety and security to the Afghan people, but also will assist with the stability in the region and security here in the UK and Europe.
Why is the Taliban so resurgent, given all the amount of money that has been spent, the lives that it has cost? Why is the Taliban still, after all of that, currently resurgent?
Because they received funding, training, resources and support from outside Afghanistan. We are focusing with our international partners to make sure that these kind of training grounds, these kind of financial supporters are diminished.
Do you think these sorts of numbers we were hearing there, 3,000 from the US, maybe 500 from the UK, is that likely to be enough, or do you anticipate that potentially that too could go up?
Hard to predict. It's a difficult fight. We are, as I mentioned, in Afghanistan, we are not only fighting for the Afghanistan safety and security, there's a lot of component to that fight that involve the region and even global security. We hope that there will be no need for any foreign soldier to die in Afghanistan. It's our job as Afghans, as Afghan soldiers, to fight primarily for the safety and security of our country. But the additional technical assistance, support and advice are needed.
And how long? So you have more troops going, potentially. How long will they be there? Because already the argument has been that they were there for too long. Now, if more troops are sent, how long for?
Our strategy to stabilize Afghanistan has many prongs. One of them is military. At the same time, we are working very actively to reconcile certain elements of the armed groups. And in fact, the Afghan government was successful in negotiating a peace deal with one of the armed groups already. So it depends on what's happening in the region. There are so many moving parts that, as far as terrorism is involved in the region, that Afghanistan is not in isolation.
Sure. And at what stage do you have to accept the realities on the ground and think maybe, just maybe, we have to start talking to the Taliban? That military strategy simply isn't working and is not going to work.
We are already talking, actually. Those elements of the Taliban that are ready to talk to us, they're welcome. We already negotiated a peace deal with the Hekmatyar and his group.
Well, Ambassador, there we have to leave it. Thank you so much for coming in to speak to us. That's almost it from us here